Okay, let's jump right into this explainer because I have a pretty unsettling premise to kick things off. I really want you to sit with this for just a second. Right now, without your explicit permission, your brain is acting. It's firing, it's calculating, and it's working entirely on its own. We love to think of ourselves as the ones firmly holding the steering wheel of our lives, right? But as we start to explore the actual literal mechanics of human cognition, we might just find out that this feeling of control, well, it's really just an incredibly convincing story constructed by an organ we barely even understand. Think about this. Over the next 10 seconds, your brain is going to process more information than the absolute most powerful supercomputer on Earth. It's effortlessly balancing the ambient temperature of your room. It's filtering out the low hum of whatever background noise is around you. It's making these tiny micro adjustments in your posture just to keep you sitting up straight and regulating countless internal biological metrics like your heart rate and your digestion. But here is the fascinating catch. You won't be consciously aware of 95% of it. Your brain essentially acts as this supreme executive assistant, sifting through literally millions of data points every single millisecond, deciding exactly what actually matters enough to bring to your conscious attention. And it's completely bypassing the conscious you in the process of running your own life. So, let's dive into Act 1, The Illusion of Free Will. Now, back in the 1980s, a neuroscientist named Benjamin Libet ran this brilliantly simple experiment that genuinely shifted our whole understanding of human agency. He took subjects, hooked them up to highly sensitive brain scanners, and gave them one basic instruction. He just said, flick your wrist whenever you feel like it. The only requirement was that they had to note the exact, precise fraction of a second they consciously decided to make that movement. And the timeline of what happened next absolutely changed neuroscience. The data showed a super clear sequence. First, the brain activates, prepping the physical machinery to move the wrist. Then, a full half second later, the person consciously decides to move. And finally, the physical movement actually occurs. The brain was already preparing the physical action a veritable eternity in neuroscience time before the person even realized they wanted to do it. This completely upends how we view our daily actions. Your profound personal sense of deciding to do something, whether it's picking up your coffee mug or clicking on this explainer, might literally just be your brain telling you a comforting little narrative about a choice it already executed. This directly complicates the whole concept of choice, right? It raises these incredible, fascinating questions about personal agency and moral responsibility. If our biology is already initiating actions before our conscious mind even gets the memo, the boundary between choosing to act and simply observing our own actions gets really, really blurry. So, does it even matter if you think you have free will as long as the illusion feels real to you? Which brings us right to Act 2, the prediction machine. We naturally just assume that our eyes, our ears, and our skin are acting like a pristine, real-time live feed, passively taking in the world exactly as it happens. But the reality is that your brain isn't reacting to the world at all. It is actually predicting it. So instead of experiencing a live camera feed, what you're really experiencing is a rendered simulation. It's a best guess that your brain hastily constructs before the sensory data even fully arrives. For example, your eyes literally have a physical blind spot right where the optic nerve connects. It's a definitive gap in your vision with zero photoreceptors. But you never walk around noticing a black hole in your sight, do you? Why? Because your brain instantly interpolates the surrounding patterns and just silently patches the missing pieces. Reality, exactly as you're experiencing it right this second, is just a highly convincing, continuously updated rendering. Phantom limb pain is actually a perfect illustration of this phenomenon. Amputees can often feel severe, excruciating pain in an arm or a leg that they literally no longer have. And this happens because the physical wiring, the limb itself, has been removed, but the brain's internal maps and neural pathways are still firing away. The brain's prediction engine is running a sensory simulation, and without the physical limb there to send back the correct feedback, the off switch is effectively just broken. The agony these patients feel is 100% neurologically real, even though the physical limb simply isn't there. It's a pretty stark reminder that your brain dictates what is real and what is felt, totally regardless of external physical truth. All right, let's go a little deeper. Act 3. Numbers that break your mind. To really, truly appreciate the scale of what we are dealing with here, we have to look at the sheer physical structure of the brain itself. 86 billion. That is the staggering, approximate number of individual neurons inside your head right now. Each one of these neurons is its own microscopic processing unit, rapidly firing chemical and electrical signals back and forth just to keep you functioning. And to put that 86 billion into perspective, it's roughly equal to the number of stars in our entire Milky Way galaxy. You are quite literally carrying a galaxy's worth of computing power inside your skull. But here's the thing, the sheer volume of neurons is only half the story. Because each one of those 86 billion neurons can connect to up to 10,000 other neurons across these tiny little gaps called synapses. And when neurotransmitters fire across those gaps, it creates an impossibly vast web of communication. If you do the math on that, it creates roughly 100 trillion connections in your brain. 100 trillion! Because of this dense, unimaginably complex network, neuroscientists estimate there are actually more possible brain states, more ways your brain can fire, organize itself, and store information than there are atoms in the known universe. It is an architecture of almost incomprehensible complexity. And yet all of that complexity, the universe-sized connections, the Milky Way of neurons, literally every memory you hold dear, every moment you've ever laughed, it all fits perfectly inside a 3-pound lump of wrinkled tissue. But here is the absolute most incredible contrast. Earlier, we talked about how your brain outpaces the world's top supercomputers. But while a supercomputer requires gigawatts of energy and massive industrial cooling towers just to barely function, your brain requires nothing more than a basic sandwich and roughly 20 watts of power. It's running this entire cosmic machine on less electricity than it takes to power a dim light bulb. It's wild. Okay, let's move on to Act 4, your biggest liar. Because the brain is the single most complex object in the universe, it brings a pretty fascinating caveat along with it. It doesn't just construct your present reality, it is also your absolute biggest liar when it comes to your past. We tend to think of memory like a video file stored securely on a computer hard drive, right? But when you experience an event and then recall it later, memory is not just playing back a static recording, it's an active reconstruction. Through a process called memory reconsolidation, every single time you pull a memory up, your brain literally rewrites it. It pulls the file, opens it, subtly shifts the details or the emotional weights based on your current mood, and then saves the new, altered version over the old one. And it does this without ever notifying you that a change was even made. And this biological reality has massive, massive real-world stakes, particularly in our justice system. Eyewitness testimony was once considered the absolute gold standard in courtrooms. If someone confidently pointed a finger and said, "I remember seeing them do it," juries totally believe them. But today, largely because of what we now know about the brain's continuous editing process, it is deeply understood to be one of the absolute least reliable forms of evidence. A person's confidence in a memory rarely ever correlates with its actual accuracy. Over the years, your original memories can become functionally unrecognizable from the actual event that took place. Think about that. The brain that remembers your childhood is entirely biologically different from the brain that actually lived it. Which leads us to our conclusion, the most mysterious object. So we've seen how your brain initiates actions and makes decisions before your conscious mind even realizes what's happening. We've explored how it literally builds your entire sense of visual and physical reality from scratch, actively patching blind spots and simulating sensations on the fly. And we've uncovered how it systematically rewrites your past, quietly editing the story of your life every single time you try to look back at it. It is an organ of immense, unbelievable power, managing all of these monumental tasks entirely on autopilot. And honestly, the part that I always find most fascinating is that it's doing all of that right now. Everything we just talked about is happening inside your skull at this exact second. While you sit there, looking at this screen, watching this explainer, you're merely thinking about thinking. But underneath all that, your brain is running the simulation. It's filtering out the room's temperature, editing the memory of what I said just 2 minutes ago, and perhaps even preparing your hand's next movement before you consciously decide to click away. So I want to leave you with this final, somewhat haunting thought. The brain is the only organ that named itself. The most mysterious, complex thing in the known universe isn't out there in the distant cosmos. It's right there, sitting between your ears. If that broke your perception of reality just a little bit today, well, good. That means this explainer did its job. I would absolutely love to hear from you, though. Drop a comment down below and let me know which of these facts melted your mind the most today.